Hey, I'm Tom. That over there's Mike, and this feels a little formal for what we're about to do. So give me a second. I just need to go get naked. I'll be right back. There we go. This is a brief history of WCW Bash at the Beach. This is the part where I would pretend to surf or swim. What? I'm not doing that. I already spent $4 on this bit. That's enough. I hope you're happy. Bash at the Beach WCW Summertime July Fun Boy pay-per-view. It became a tradition. It was not a tradition at first, and then it became a tradition. That's how traditions work. They never start as traditions. You can't. That's why they call them traditions. If you could do a tradition once, you would have to call it something else. And what better way to start our journey than going back to the year 1992 and Mobile, Alabama for the first Beach Blast pay-per-view. Beach Blast came about because they figured we can't draw bigger audiences for the pay-per-views we're doing, but if we add more pay-per-views, then the same audience will pay multiple times. It's a weird show, and that it's kind of a transition between regimes. This was put on the calendar by K. Allen Fry, WCW handsome boy executive who did make things a lot better in early 1992, but then he was ousted because people didn't like that he was not a wrestling guy. And in his place came Cowboy Bill Watts, riding in on a racist horse. And Bill Watts inherited a real weird schedule. Days before this, they filmed a Clash of the Champions TV special with the first round of the NWA World Tag Team Title Tournament, which was to then conclude at the Great American Bash, which is about a month after Beach Blast. They couldn't acknowledge the results of the show because it hadn't aired. It was airing 2 days after this. So if you didn't want to spend $30 on a pay-per-view, just wait 2 days later, you're going to get a whole free special with arguably better talent on it. And since Bill's kind of stuck in this holding pattern, where we got that, and also he's got a bunch of booking done by the previous regime that he can't really touch, otherwise it screws up everything. He just kind of has to ride the wave and institute what he can, including popular beach dweller Ole Anderson, who referees a 6-man tag team match late in the show, as he becomes the special troubleshooting referee of World Championship Wrestling. Wrestling fans love bureaucracy. There is one booking decision that Bill Watts does get to tinker with on this show, as Scotty Flamingo defeats Flying Brian for the World Light Heavyweight Championship. Brian was supposed to hold the belt a lot longer, but in the days leading up to this, Brian and Bill Watts had a meeting, because Bill Watts was hired to cut budget. Brian Pillman was making a lot of money, main eventer level money, for a guy who was mostly in the first and second match on the card. And Bill Watts is like, listen, you can have the belt, or you can have the money. You can't have both. And famously, Brian Pillman goes, then I'll be the highest paid jobber in America. And thus Scotty Flamingo, working for practically peanuts, coming straight from Global to WCW, becomes the World Light Heavyweight Champion as the championship begins to fade out. We also get a really great match between Sting and, in my opinion, his most underrated rival, Cactus Jack. It's Falls Count Anywhere on the Gulf Coast. This had kind of become Cactus Jack's signature match. They kind of play it up like Cactus Jack is a paid assassin of the Dangerous Alliance to take out Sting, with potential to become a full-time member, except Bill Watts demolishes the group after Beach Blast because he doesn't like Paul Heyman. And it's a heck of a match. Sting is a ball player. You know, for a top guy who didn't need to be doing crazy stuff, Sting was always down to be slammed into things and thrown off of things and jumping off of things, all the way to his final moments in the sport. Wonderful match. If you've never seen it, it's on YouTube by itself. Go check it out. Top promoted match on the show was a non-title match between U.S. champion Ravishing Rick Rude and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in an Iron Man challenge. The wrestler who scores the most falls in 30 minutes wins the match. Now, I know the WWF had done marathon matches before this with the Rougeaus and the Rockers. Essentially the same stipulation, just a different name. But to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time the Iron Man name was ever used on American television. One of the few instances of the WWF just wholesale taking a WCW gimmick name and running with it as a brand. It's a good match. It's not a great match. I don't like Iron Man matches. The only part that really counts is the last minute. So it's like, who cares about the other 29 minutes or 59 minutes or however long the match is? They work very hard. It's just, I don't find the drama in it. And the storyline leading up to this match is every single Reddit incel thread about women, where Medusa accuses Ricky Steamboat of stalking her out of the arenas and following her around. And I believe at one point he accidentally hits her in the face when trying to get at Rick Rude. And of course, we're all supposed to know that he's being falsely accused because how could he do it? It's not like he's a man or anything. And it doesn't go anywhere. That's just how you build up an Iron Man match, with accusations of aggressive stalking. And the main event, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Terry Bam Bam Gordy go to a 30-minute draw with the Steiners, completely negating the Iron Man match from earlier. Doc and Gordy were already in. They had taped all their stuff with the Steiners for the Clash a few days earlier, but they had nothing else to do. So Bill Watts is like, just go wrestle the Steiners again. We're not going to do a finish. Whatever. Flash forward to 1993. Rick Rude is back in the Iron Man Challenge. Another 30-minute Iron Man match, this time against the Natural Dustin Rhodes. The U.S. title had been held up for a bit due to a double pin situation, which wasn't really a double pin. They both got their shoulders up. But the WCW Board of Directors is like, listen, we don't know anything about wrestling. We're going to say that you both were pinned, and thus no one is champion. Leading to this, the 30-minute Iron Man match. They go to a draw here because they needed to hold it out some more. Again, a fine match. The gimmick, it hurts it more than helps it, in my opinion. Can't really get into the match until like 29 minutes in. They worked their butts off, but it felt like it was all for naught, you know? Of course, Ric Flair wins back the NWA World Heavyweight title that he took on the WWF television about a year and a half earlier, causing this whole big stink with the NWA title. And his solo return to the WCW ring, defeating Barry Windham in an okay match. It's fine. They would have like a million other better matches, but this is also 1993, and Barry Windham's body is like, dude, we are 6'6" tall. You cannot be doing the stuff you've been doing. We give up. And in the main event, Sting and Davey Boy Smith, who'd been hired a few months earlier to be the European superhero of WCW, to help them draw big crowds in Europe on upcoming tours, defeat the masters of the powerbomb, Sid Vicious and Big Van Vader. Of course, this was built based off of the infamous mini-movie, where Cheatham, the short fella, is like, hey guys, we're gonna kill some children on a boat, and then the boat explodes, and Sid's standing there in his flip-flops like, he didn't really do it, but he was like sucking his gums or something, I don't know. But it was to build to a wrestling match. And totally fine match. You know, Sid and Vader's always a good time. Davey Boy and Vader, I think, is a very underrated pair, because Davey would just throw Vader around and it looked really cool. Other than that, nothing really else of note on that show. It's kind of an unremarkable show. But the next year, they rebrand the thing. Gone are the days of blasting. We do not blast at the beach anymore. It is impolite to blast at the beach. Quite frankly, it is lewd to blast at the beach. We are bashing at the beach. Now, you would have thought Bill Watts would have bashed at the beach. Gay bashed, ethnic bashed. But no. We're bashing at the beach with Eric Bischoff, who's decided to rebrand a lot of things in WCW, as he has taken over the television and branding and anything visual that you see. Eric Bischoff had taken that over at this point. And as most people know, Bash at the Beach 1994 in Orlando is the Hulk Hogan debut show, where the entire 3 hours is dedicated to how cool it is that Hulk Hogan is in WCW now. The rest of the show, other than the main event, feels like the countdown to the Hulk Hogan show. There might as well have been a counter in the corner, counting down how long you had to wait until Hulk Hogan came to the ring, because nothing else on this show felt like it had any sort of consequence. There's Hulk Hogan with his pal Mr. T and Shaquille O'Neal, and Jimmy Hart defeats Ric Flair, newly turned heel, because Hulk Hogan wants to wrestle him again for the World Heavyweight Championship. And then after this match, you know, they all hug and sweat, and B. Brian Blair's backstage, and Mr. T just sticks around for the rest of the year. He's got nothing else going on. Just give him work. Chris Lemon is at ringside, plotting his crime-fighting buddy Hulk Hogan. Do you think that Chris Lemon ever talked to his dad about Hulk Hogan? Do you think that Jack Lemmon had an opinion about Hulk Hogan? He probably thought Hulk was like a nice guy, but didn't understand all the pizzazz. Literally the only other thing on the show that I think anybody would remember is there's a tag team match with Dustin Rhodes and Arn Anderson, who Dustin had begged to be his partner against the Stud Stable because Arn was the only guy in WCW he felt was tough enough to back him up against Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck, the only guy rugged enough. And Arn's like, dude, listen, me and your dad don't get along. You do not want me there. Weeks and weeks and weeks, Dustin begs him and begs him and begs him, please. Arn's like, fine, I'll do it. I'll do it. And then Arn DDT's Dustin because Arn hates his dad, like he told Dustin, and joins the stud stable and starts wearing this little handkerchief out to the ring. It's adorable. Look at that. It's so cute. The next year, they are literally at the beach. They are on the beach, Huntington Beach, California. They put up a ring at the beach and told everybody, show up. No chairs, no tickets, nothing. Oiled up, tanned, beautiful. Just come watch some wrestling. They claimed that 100,000 fans were on site for Bash at the Beach, but they would do so while cutting to this wide shot. Closest estimate I've heard from any sort of reliable sources, about 9,800 at like the peak, but it was normally between like 5,000 and 6,000 watching at any point. As notable as anything that happened in the ring, this is the day that Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer met. As you see, Brian was visiting California. Dave was getting jacked and tan on the beach. Brian was running around handing out free samples of his newsletter so he could, write off the trip for tax purposes. And he bumps into Dave and he's like, Dave, you're my hero. I love you. Will you read this, please? And Dave read it. And you see boys, gals, and non-binary pals. And a dirt sheet writer loves another dirt sheet writer. They host a podcast together. And from that podcast begets a website merger. And when that website grows up, it gets sold to an equity firm that ruins it with AI bullshit. In the ring, the Renegade defeats Paul Orndorff in a WCW World Television title match where Orndorff gets his shoulder up during the pin with the disputed finish or whatever, what have you, just to do another match later. What makes this match notable is apparently these two could not get together backstage to put this match together because visiting, since he was negotiating with the company at the time for something that would not happen because his demands were way too high, was the Ultimate Warrior. Warrior hated the Renegade for obvious reasons. Plus, he feels like since the Ultimate Warrior's limo driver was the guy who broke Renegade into the business, it was kind of shady that he came into WCW as the Ultimate Warrior. All day, the Renegade hid from the Ultimate Warrior. He ran around on the beach trying to avoid the Warrior because I guess he thought the Ultimate Warrior was going to beat him up. I would love nothing more than if those two would have gotten into a fight. I would love to see the Ultimate Warrior have tried to fight someone for real. Of course, this is the Bash at the Beach where they filmed the Baywatch episode that most people have seen. It's, of course, the episode where the gif where Vader pops the basketball, where that comes from. Due to that, they held a lifeguard match between the Macho Man Randy Savage and Ric Flair. A lifeguard match is a lumberjack match, but in a much warmer climate. We've covered it on other videos here on the channel, but Ric Flair, of course, beat up Angelo Poffo the night that he was inducted into the WCW Hall of Fame, and then the next month on Father's Day, Randy goes to get revenge for his dad and loses because, once again, fuck dads, dads suck. But of course, Randy Savage does get his revenge here, defeats Ric Flair. And the moral of the story is that Randy Savage could not be motivated enough by his father's broken leg. But you know what did it for him? Busty blonde gals. Horny much, Randy? Keep your little boner in your frilly pants, you weirdo. And in the main event, Hulk Hogan and Vader inside of a steel cage for the World Heavyweight title after months of Vader avoiding doing jobs for Hulk Hogan because he had a job in Japan and they would not allow him to do jobs to Hulk Hogan. Vader fresh off of the Roadkill tour where he prepared to wrestle Hulk Hogan by beating up prelim guys in Smoky Mountain and the USWA. Hogan accompanied the ring by Dennis Rodman, who's probably the only adult Hulkamaniac to ever have sex. It's the Formula Hulk Hogan match, with the exception being there's a moment where Vader goes up to the top rope and he does something. It's like the mind was willing, the body wasn't. That thing was supposed to be a shooting star press. Vader decided to, for the first time in his life, try a shooting star press live on pay-per-view on the beach under the July hot sun with Hulk Hogan underneath him on pay-per-view. And instead he did that. He couldn't do a shooting star press. I'm not giving him crap for it. Just try it on a crash pad first, my dude. Hogan wins, everybody's happy, and the 100,000 fans in attendance get sucked up in a Sharknado. I believe that's a timely reference. Of course, Hulk Hogan's in the center of controversy the next year, Bash at the Beach 96. This thing happens. I don't know anything about it. I can't really speak to it. If somebody else knows about what happened there, please let me know in the comments. More importantly, Steve Mongo McMichael makes his singles WCW live television debut on pay-per-view, of course, as he goes live against the desperado Joe Gomez, who was only slightly better than a retired football player who hadn't done anything physical in 6 years and had just started training to wrestle. They both had fine hair. Other than the main event, the most important thing on this show is the opening match. Rey Mysterio Jr. defeats Psychosis. As important as Rey and Dean Malenko was the previous month in getting Rey exposed on national television for the first time, I think this is nearly as important. Rey and Psychosis were perfect rivals, one of the all-time great pairings in pro wrestling. And Rey got to show out in ways he could not show out with any other wrestler. They got plenty of time. They had Mike Tenay on commentary explaining everything. They hit everything as cleanly as they ever had in their career. I think this match is the best thing these two ever did against each other. Everything is smooth. The crowd is with it. They're seeing brand new things they've never seen before, so they're going crazy. It's awesome. Bash at the Beach 97. WCW is like one of the hottest things in American television at this point. So why not get Dennis Rodman back involved? He's no longer a Hulkamaniac. Now he's an NWO pervert. And he skips Chicago Bulls NBA Finals practice. And he's smoking cigars. And he's going to booby bars with Hulk Hogan. And then they wrestle Lex Luger and the Giant. You know, Rodman impresses everybody. He does the arm drag. He's like competent as a wrestler. He's not a complete train wreck. It's a fine match. A lot of people are impressed. It does a great buy rate because Dennis Rodman is a legit celebrity at this point. Does a wonderful job. And by wonderful, I mean he's okay. And the other important note on this show, I don't want to talk about this. Do I have to talk about this? You sure? My boss, Joe YouTube, just told me I have to talk about this. Shit. All right, here it goes. In a retirement match, Chris Benoit defeats Kevin Sullivan. It's a good match. They hit each other really hard. Honestly, the star of the match is Jacqueline. She gets more over than either of the dudes. They do wooden chair spots, which I love because they're safe and look awesome. Honestly, the match seems like it's going to set up Kevin Sullivan and Jackie in a singles match. Turner had actually told Kevin, hey, dude, listen, you can be a wrestler or you can be the booker. Which one is it going to be? Because this shit's getting real weird with you and Benoit, and a lot of the guys do not want you wrestling and booking. And he's like, fine, I'll be office. I'll get benefits. I'll get insurance. Don't twist my arm. And thus Kevin Sullivan loses to Chris Benoit. Don't you dare. Benoit truthers, stay away. Stay out of the comments. Go somewhere else. I'm threatening you once. That's it. After that, I'm coming with my nunchucks. Next year, Bash at the Beach 1998. Dennis Rodman's back, but this time he is hammered. Supposed to be Hollywood Hogan and Dennis Rodman against Karl Malone and Diamond Dallas Page. In a match that many have said they shot an angle for during an NBA Finals game, where Malone and Rodman got into a bit of a tussle on the court. But whether they shot the angle there or they were just playing off of it, there was a lot of mainstream attention on this match. But then Rodman shows up and he doesn't have a blood alcohol level. He just has an alcohol level. Dude is blasted. So much so that Antoine Carr from the Utah Jazz, who's just there to visit, they ask him, hey, if we told you like 3 wrestling moves to do, could you replace this piece of shit? And like, I guess WCW attorneys were on the phone with NBA attorneys all day trying to get this set up. But Antoine Carr did not have the clause in his contract that would allow him to do physical activity like this during the offseason. And thus they had to send Rodman out to the ring, completely gone. And by gone, I mean he fell asleep in the corner. And they had to like zoom in to not show that he was taking a nap during the match. It's a disaster. It's wonderful. And then just days after the legendary moment where Goldberg wins the world title and becomes the top star in the entire industry, his first pay-per-view title defense is against Curt Hennig, who he was supposed to be in a tag match with. They move it up a little bit. Still not the main event. Goldberg, who is as popular as any wrestler has ever been in America at this point, is just in like a 6-minute mid-card match, defending his world title. squeaks by Kurt Hennig, who is a star, but he's not like the top guy in the industry big. And then the other half of that tag match that became a singles, the Giant defeats Kevin Green. This is Kevin Green's swan song from pro wrestling, which is unfortunate because the dude was awesome. Kevin Green, for the number of matches he had, per capita might have been one of the best wrestlers ever. Volkan, technically, way better. But Kevin Green, as a showman and being able to do the moves, it was a singles match. They trusted him with like a little bit of power plant training to do a singles match with the Giant, who was like way out of shape at this point. Wasn't really super into WCW. He's just kind of there. And Kevin Green carries the match. He's so good. It is so frustrating that Kevin Green did not become a wrestler after he played football. Bash at the Beach 99 is so freaking much. This is where things get real weird and sad with WCW. First off, all the advertising material for Bash at the Beach is of a rainy day outside. The WCW ad executives topped themselves. The Cat, Ernest Miller, defeated Disco Inferno in a match where the loser was not going to be allowed to dance anymore. Except right before bell time, they took away the stipulation because neither man wanted to stop dancing as part of their gimmick. And the booking committee is like, yeah, that was stupid of us, wasn't it? Because that's all you guys have at this point is the dancing. So they just ignored it. Had the No Limits Soldiers, Hootie Hoot, in an 8-man tag team elimination match against the West Texas Rednecks, the accidental biggest baby faces in the company. For those that don't know, Kurt Hennig and the West Texas Rednecks had legitimately become huge favorites of the crowds because WCW, despite everything they did to brand it otherwise, was a Southern wrestling company. And these were cowboys who were singing songs about how rap is crap. And the No Limit Soldiers were like 50 dudes deep, always had the numbers advantage. The dynamic was it was totally in reverse, totally ass backwards. And that was the story of this match because like it's a Survivor Series match. It's an elimination match. The No Limit Soldiers had the numbers game the entire match. It was always, 4-on-3 or 3-on-2. It ends up 2-on-1. With Kurt Hennig against Big Swole and Rey Mysterio Jr. But there's also like a bunch of dudes at ringside from the No Limit Soldiers because Master P like got a ton of dudes contracts. Just stand there. It's a stupid fight. We got the Junkyard match. Fit Finlay wins, well documented. There's like 30 dudes in the match. There's like one big overhead light for the entire thing. But you got like dudes jumping off cars through windshields. Like half of the mid card gets legitimately injured during the match, but you see none of it. It's the match that launched 1,000 surgeries. And then there was the boxing match. Buff Bagwell with his mom Judy against Roddy Piper. This was supposed to be a playoff of the WrestleMania 2 Piper Mr. T match. Buff Bagwell was a way worse babyface than dude from the A-Team. The majority of the reason why they even did this match was because they got Judge Mills Lane to agree to referee it. Judge Mills Lane, who had been a big deal in American media, mostly for being the referee in the Mike Tyson-Holyfield fight, where Tyson bites Holyfield's ear back in '97. He'd been on Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV. He'd already done wrestling. He did a segment on Monday Night Raw like 9 months before this. He jumped from the WWF to WCW. He was doing this to promote his daytime show, Judge Mills Lane. That's why Judy Bagwell's at ringside, because Bobby Heenan always called her Judge Judy, and they thought that would be cute. I think they should have just had Judy Bagwell and Mills Lane, like, review potato chips. Like a vlog. That would have been way better. Work boxing matches always suck. You're supposed to sell the punches, but it doesn't look like boxing, it looks like bullshit wrestling. Speaking of bullshit wrestling, Buff Bagwell wins the boxing match by delivering a Buff blockbuster and then pinning him. You know, all those famous pinfall wins in legendary boxing matches? And in the main event, Randy Savage wins the WCW World Heavyweight title during his midlife crisis when he teamed with Sid Vicious to defeat Sting and Kevin Nash. Because you see, Kevin Nash was the world champion, and Sting and Sid kind of got into this. They announce on TV that it's going to be a tag team match for the world title, but not only that, you can pin your own partner to win the belt. So it's a four-way, but it's not a four-way. Fuck! I got a headache. My head, it hurts. I'm supposed to be on the beach. This is a beach thing, and you're making me think. Bashing on the beach, and you're giving me a headache. I got a shirt. I bought $4 $4 at Goodwill. I can do the beach thing. And Randy lost the belt the next night to Hulk Hogan anyway, so fuck that. And then the year 2000, as if things couldn't get more convoluted, Vince Russo wrote this show. Such classics as Miss Hancock versus Daphne in a wedding gown match because you see Stacy Keibler was David Flair's real life girlfriend. Daphne was David Flair's fake TV girlfriend. And so they were gonna feud because David was dating his girlfriend in real life, now on TV, but also his TV girlfriend, but he was gonna marry one of them. Fuck. Bro. Also, Vampiro defeats the Demon in a graveyard match that is just 10 minutes of a black screen. You thought that Junkyard match the year before was dark? They didn't bring any lights for this match. None. You can barely... Vampiro hits him with a tombstone, I think, at one point. You don't see it. Scott Hall, who was actually on television and on his way to actually getting fired, was the focal point of the Goldberg-Kevin Nash feud. This is Goldberg's first big storyline after turning heel. He hates Scott Hall in real life, and thus, he must hate him on television, because everything is a shoot, bro. This match is for the holding rights to Scott Hall's contract. Apparently, if Kevin Nash won this match, he could legally force WCW to book Scott Hall again. But we didn't have to worry about that because Goldberg won. Of course, the thing everybody knows this show for. Jeff Jarrett lays down for Hulk Hogan to give him the world title. Yeah. This whole thing. Then Vince Russo comes out and calls him a bald son of a bitch. It's wrestling. I'm wearing my San Francisco Giants jersey, and that means this is a shoot. Because Vince Russo, the character, loves the Yankees. And Vince Russo, the man, loves the Giants, bro. And so tonight I am shooting... and I'm going to go backstage and watch a Giants game, and I'm going to do the right thing for the young guys. And Jeff Jarrett's going to wrestle Booker T, who had lost to Canyon earlier on the show, for the world title. And Booker T wins the belt to start his run as a top main event star, where he would imitate The Rock for like 9 months before going to the WWF. There will be lawsuits and dark sides of the ring, and I don't want to fucking talk about this. Because everybody else has, and it's stupid, and it's dumb, and I thought this was supposed to be a silly video where I wore a fun shirt and did a lot of beach puns. And now I'm upset. I'm actually upset. Now I'm upset. I'm actually frustrated, and I want to, look at that. WCW did that to me. Look like fucking Beekman. Sure does look nice on me, though. I gotta say, it looks nice. Anyway, if you like seeing my blood pressure go up during this video, please make sure to leave a comment below. Give a thumbs up to the video. Give a hype, follow, subscribe to the channel. Check out my streams Tuesdays and Sunday nights. And my name's Tom. That back there is Mike. And I need to go outside.